Hello everyone, and thanks for dropping by the video. I hope your Kanto Cup has been going well, and unfortunately we're going to have to say goodbye to it tomorrow because we're going to be entering into the Catch Cup. If you don't know about the Catch Cup, there are a couple of rules that Niantic has released. So only Pokemon that have been caught since the beginning of Season 5 are going to be eligible for this cup. There are no mythical Pokemon allowed in this cup, which include Mew, Celebi, Jirachi, and Victini. Recently, Pokeminers has also determined that Meltan is not eligible, so no Melmetal in this format either. And as of today, there has been no official confirmation of whether hatched or traded Pokemon are going to count or not. And I guess we're just going to have to wait until tomorrow to see if those are eligible. So I'm sure the big question is, especially with the release of level 50, is how are you going to save Stardust and what should you be investing in for this cup? And I think the community, in terms of the creators, are a little bit torn. Some people are saying just play what you have. Some people are saying don't invest in anything. In my opinion, I still think that you should be playing in this cup regardless, even if you're just going to be there to farm Stardust. Mainly because we have 35 sets of battles remaining in GBL for Season 5 starting on Monday. And if you go 2 or 3, or 2 and 3, or 3 and 2 in each of these sets, you're still going to get about 3,500 dust per set, or about 120k dust per week. So regardless of whether you do well or not, if you use this as a way to farm Stardust, it'll still be worth it. Even if you surrender all of your battles, you're still going to get 70k. So I think the main question then when it comes to team building is how are we going to minimize our cost to make a solid team and still be able to perform well? And I have some criteria here. And before I start, I will say this is not meant for people who have millions of dust and they're going to make a second Azumarill, or they're going to power up a Galarian Stunfisk, things like that. This is kind of intended for I think the majority of us who kind of just want to skate by and just have a little bit of fun while still have a functioning team. So the 4 criteria that I used for Pokemon selection in this cup then, so these Pokemon that I play have to have either a 10k secondary move or do not need a secondary move at all to operate. We're going to ignore IVs for this cup, which means put away that Pokegenie, put away that Calc IV. You're just going to look for, maybe Weather Boost is going to help, but you're going to look for anything that gets you as close to 1500 CP as possible. We're going to take advantage of these event spawns, common spawns that are out there all the time. And then raid mons are okay, but they're generally going to be a little bit more expensive because they're either going to start at level 20 or 25, and those can still be pretty backbreaking if you're just thinking about a 1-week investment. And then the final caveat that I have here is consider breaking the above 3 rules if you're building a mon that you actually need. So if you're building a Toxicroak for the first time, if you're building your first Skarmory, if you're just getting into PvP like that, feel free to break these rules because some of these Pokemon are going to be pretty future-proof. So if you are really going to be investing into being a battler, then you don't have to think about any of these rules. But I mean, obviously find the best version that you can for the cup, but you don't have to save so much if you're going to have this for the first time. Mainly applies to rebuilding mons only. So let's get into what I think are going to be some pools of cheap Pokemon that you can go with. And I've pretty much broken it down into like 6 different groups of mons. Of course, you have the Wigglytuff Spotlight Hour. This was all over Kanto Cup. We had a Spotlight Hour one day after the season started, so I can imagine that a lot of folks already have one built. I actually do not have one built because I had a Wigglytuff prior to this, so I kind of skipped Spotlight Hour anyways and didn't pay too much attention. But I think this Pokemon will likely be all over the format in some way, shape, or form. And you can already see on the screen that there's a Whimsicott, and I'm thinking that Double Charmer is probably going to be a thing in this format. Second group of mons are the 2 November community days that we've had. Undoubtedly, you've probably kept a Magmar or an Electabuzz and evolved those to Magmortar or Electivire. And I believe that both of these mons can likely function with just one move, with their community day move, and still be pretty effective. So if you did catch a good one and it doesn't take too much to power up, shouldn't be an issue. And both of these Pokemon, they should hit their Great League CP around level 18, so it should be a very, very minimal cost. You also have a group of very cheap flyers in the format, which include Golbat, Noctowl, Skarmory, and Altaria. The 3 on the right are all 10k secondary moves, and Skarmory does not need a secondary move to operate either. And getting into the second row, we have Whiscash Spotlight Hour coming up. By the time this video is posted, it'll be tomorrow, so Tuesday, where you can go and find a really nice Whiscash for Great League. I highly recommend that you go and catch one because this is a pretty staple Pokemon of the Great League, and I think it's going to be very effective. So definitely keep an eye out for that. And of course, you're not going to have it for Monday's battles, but you're definitely going to have it for Tuesday's battles and moving forward. And then we have a group of Razor Leafers here. So I did include Shadow Victory Bell here. I know that because a lot of folks for Kanto Cup actually built their first Shadow Victory Bell. And if you did catch it in that time window, then it's definitely going to be eligible for this cup as well. And then I'm also including Ivysaur as well as Roselia, which I see quite a bit in the wild and actually considered bringing that one in. So Roselia's attack stat is very high. It's actually very similar to Victory Bell in a lot of ways. It's similarly glassy. You can't really take a charge move, but it's going to be chunking away with those Razor Leaves. And then Ivysaur, it's more of a general grass user. It can use Vine Whip as well as Razor Leaf, depending on what your preference is. And I'll kind of showcase two teams that are going to use it, both in the Razor Leaf form as well as the Vine Whip form in this video. And then the last group here are these effective generalists that I call them. These generalists are going to be pretty cheap to build and either require no secondary move like the Umbreon or have a 10k secondary move, and they're all going to be available in the wild in some way. So Umbreon is a very common spawn out in the wild, as is Cherrim. And then you have Obstagoon, which is available in either GBL encounter, or if you find out that the hatches work, that's also going to be where you can obtain one. Whimsicott is out there right now, and I believe it's going to be available until tomorrow evening. And then you have you have Kanto Raichu from Animation Week, so that one should be the one with the cap on. And there were plenty of them running around. I think I caught a pretty good one for this cup as well if I want to invest into that. Okay, so let's take a look into some teams that you can make with these Pokemon. And again, these are budget teams. These are designed to minimize cost as much as possible. And especially if you have to rebuild these, you're definitely going to take less brunt of that cost. All right, so the first one is Whiscash, Kanto Raichu, and then your choice of Altaria or Skarmory. And the reason I say that's your choice because if there's a lot of Wigglytuff, I would definitely recommend Skarmory be in the second move slot. Although I think that Altaria is very strong still in its own right. And the moves that I'm recommending is Mudshot, Mud Bomb, and Blizzard for Whiscash, Thunder Shock, Break Break, Wall Charge for Kanto Raichu. And the main reason that I recommend that is because this is a safe swap. So if we run into anything that resists electric, we're going to want that Break Break for the coverage. And I think Thunder Shock is a little bit more consistent, especially if you're a new player or if you're looking for a budget team and you're not familiar with how Volt Switch works. I would think that Volt Switch is probably a little harder to use, but Thunder Shock charges very well, charges very consistently, so that's something to take a look at. If you're an advanced user of Raichu, then I would definitely recommend going to Volt Switch. And then for the Kanto form, you can also go double electric moves as well. One potential replacement here for Kanto Raichu could be the Alolan version, because the Alolan version has Grass Knot, Psychic, and Wall Charge, so you can have a lot more coverage that way. But again, the raid version, the Weather Booster version is too high for Great League, and then the regular raid version, the non-Weather Booster version, costs about 30k to get to you that 1500 spot plus second move. So if you're going to be really saving dust, I would just go with the Kanto Raichu if you caught it wild. And then for Altaria, I have Dragon Breath, Sky Attack, and then your choice of either Dragon Pulse or Dazzling Gleam. I kind of like Dazzling Gleam in this format. Main reason is because if you do run into like an Umbreon or something, like and you're able to nuke it, it does really help that matchup a lot. And because there are going to be so many Wigglytuff and so many Whimsicott, if you get into a situation where you can only throw one charge move, then I might consider throwing that Dazzling Gleam instead. But finally, and then there's Skarmory here with just Air Slash Sky Attack. So no need for Brave Bird, no need for Flash Cannon in this format. However, if you find a good one, you want to invest in one, feel free to throw a secondary move on it as well. And this team is a pretty traditional team. It's actually one that I recommend to a lot of my students, or a lot of people who ask me for advice, and a couple of my students. And it's a balanced team composition, so again, switch advantage dependent here. And in terms of the wild spawns and the GBL encounters where you can get these Pokemon, all four of these are available in the wild, and then you can also get Skarmory through GBL. So I rate the ease to acquire this team about a 6 out of 10, and then once that Tuesday Spotlight Hour hits, it's going to be like 9 out of 10, because the Whiscash or the Barboach is going to be the hardest one to acquire out of all four of these. And if you can get consistent spawns on it on Tuesday, I can't imagine that you're not going to find a good one within the hour. So overall, the requirements are going to be 10k for the secondary move and then the power-up costs. And depending on which flyer you pick, you're probably going to be looking at about a 40k to an 80k Stardust investment. However, the future use for this, or how future-proof this team is, I would give it 8.5 out of 10, because at the very least, Whiscash, Altaria, and Skarmory are all going to have applications in Open Great League in some way. So making that investment right now, if that's your first time building these mons, I wouldn't even hesitate. I would pull the trigger on those immediately. Okay, let's take a look at the second team. And this one's a classic, because this is actually my Season 1 team. when I first started GBL and I had nothing. So it's a very nostalgic team, and I'm happy to take this into Catch Cup because I think I still have some of these Pokemon like from my Gotcha, and I can just remake those and reload the glory days. So I've got Ivysaur here with Vine Whip, Power Whip, and Sludge Bomb. I've got Umbreon with just one move, Snarl and Foul Play, and I've got Skarmory with Air Slash and Sky Attack. So the great thing about this cup is that we're not going to see a Zumbo everywhere, hopefully not, because Zumbos are very expensive, and I don't expect everyone to remake another Zumbo. So Umbreon has a little bit more leeway, despite so many Wigglytuff and Whimsicott that I'm going to be expecting in the format, but should have a little better leeway. And mainly here, again, another balanced team composition where you're switch advantage dependent. We're going to use Umbreon as our safe swap here, and as long as you don't run into a Charmer, you can kind of reset that switch advantage to your favor. And in terms of the wild spawns, again, Bulbasaur, Eevee, and Skarmory all available in the wild. Bulbasaur was very common during Animation Week. I rarely opened my phone and did not find one on my screen, so you should have a pretty good one, and especially look for cloudy or sunny weather so you can get one that maxes out. I think it needs like level 31 or level 32 to get to an Ivysaur. So definitely try to find one that can get you there without too much of a Stardust investment. I have one that's only 6,000 away, so that feels very good. I'm definitely going to be making Ivysaur for this cup. And then in terms of the ease to acquire, yep, 7 out of 10. Pretty common Pokemon overall. And then the requirements are just 10k for the Ivysaur and then whatever power-up cost you need. The unfortunate part is that Skarmory, if you do get it from GBL, it'll be level 20, and it'll cost about 40k to get to that 1500 spot. So definitely make that decision based on whether you need the Skarmory or not, but I still think this is a pretty solid and effective team. And in terms of the future use, I give it 7 out of 10, mainly because the Umbreon kind of needs last resort, and I don't think you're using a charged move or elite charged TM on it. So you probably will have to rebuild the Umbreon when it comes time. But otherwise, the other two Pokemon, even the Ivysaur, if you save it until December Community Day and you evolve it, generally in the level 32 to 33 range, if you get an Ivysaur that is 1500, it'll end up around 2500 CP to be a Venusaur. So I think these are pretty safe investments to make overall, and this is a pretty solid team. Okay, getting into the third team. So now we're going to move on to the unbalanced team compositions where we have two of the same type in the back with a specific counter in the front. So again, we're expecting some double Charmers, which are going to be pretty tough to navigate around, but this team actually I think has a good shot because you've got the Skarmory lead or the Steel lead to counter the Charm users, and then you have two Dark users in the back. And the main thing is we're going to use Umbreon here to bait out the first Charmer with build a huge energy advantage with Skarmory, and then try to get some shields when the counter comes in. And the thing is with Obstagoon, because you have Gunk Shot, if shields are down, you can actually win that matchup against the Charmers. So I think this is a pretty solid team to play, and then it obviously depends on whether a hatched Obstagoon is going to be able to be used in this Catch Cup, because I've only gotten like maybe one Zigzagoon from GBL so far, and it wasn't usable. Yeah, this team should be pretty cheap to assemble overall, and I would say easy to acquire 7 out of 10. And then in terms of the requirements, the best thing about the hatched or the GBL Zigzagoons, they evolve straight to Obstagoon based on most IV situations, and you just need to buy the secondary move on it. So 10k for the Obstagoon plus the power-up costs. I mean, this is going to be a pretty cheap team. And again, with the exception of Umbreon, the two remaining Pokemon, very good for future use inside of Open Great League or whatever 1500 CP cups that they're going to be applicable in. Definitely very solid generalists here. Okay, looking into the fourth team. So this is where we start getting some fun here, and this probably looks very familiar. This is probably better known as Charmhole, but we're not going to be using Alola Marowak here because that's going to be a little too expensive for this cup if you're making a new one. Instead, we are going to be using Magmortar, and it's going to have Fire Spin and Thunderbolt from the Community Day, and we're not going to be adding a second move. So this is a tap team. You're going to be charming, you're going to be fire spinning, and you might be throwing a couple of charge moves, but the main source of damage is going to come from this charm. So again, unbalanced team composition, bait out that steel or poison type with the Wigglytuff, try to finish that off with Magmortar, and then let Whimsicott kind of finish things off. So in terms of the wild spawns, you should have seen all three of these at some point in the past 2 weeks. Whimsicott is available right now, or Cottony, and then of course the Jigglypuff Spotlight Hour, as well as the Magmar Community Day that we just had. And then yeah, easy to acquire 10 out of 10. And then for the requirements here, 10k for each of the secondary moves and the Charmers. And then we're just going to one move the Magmortar and just roll with it. So this is probably the cheapest team that you can build. And I'll say the future use is actually 8 out of 10 because I expect that Whimsicott and Wigglytuff are going to have pretty good applications in GBL moving forward, kind of no matter what. And then maybe Magmortar gets its day in the sunlight, but I don't see too much use for that. However, again, Community Day, you probably have a ton of these, and very likely that you kept one around 1500 CP. Okay, and then getting into the last budget team here, another unbalanced team composition, this time using Whiscash, Skarmory, and Altaria. And this time, again, we're going to be baiting out the best flying counter with Skarmory, and then we're going to be cleaning up with Altaria in the back. So this team is actually an open Great League team right now. So I know it's pretty established, and this is why the future use is a 10 out of 10 here. All 3 Pokemon are very useful. Of course, it's going to be in terms of ease to acquire. The Barboach is going to be pretty hard to get before Tuesday, but after that Spotlight Hour, I expect this to be readily available. And then again, 10k secondary cost for both for Whiscash and Altaria, and then whatever power-up cost that you need. So I think you're going to spend about 40 to 80k on this team. But then again, having this investment for the future is definitely great. I totally recommend this team, and I think that it's going to be very, very good. Maybe not so much in this cup, depending on how varied the metagame is, but in Open Great League, definitely a very strong team composition to play. Okay, so you might be wondering, what am I going to be playing in this catch cup? And I think it's pretty funny, but I wound up invoking my 4th rule, which is if I don't own the Pokemon, I'm gonna go ahead and build it for this cup. So I'm gonna go ahead and show you the last team. This is not a budget team, mainly because there's a Pokemon in it with a 50k secondary move, but it is what I'm going to be testing because I do want to learn how to play Probopass here. So I'm going to be playing a double weakness comp. This is very similar to Grass Hole, I guess, and instead of a Bastiodon, I have a Probopass here in the slot, and I'm going to be playing with Cherrim and Ivysaur in the back. So once again, you're going to be baiting out the best grass counter with Cherrim, taking it down with Probopass, and then having Ivysaur in the back to clean up. And the best thing is, here on the screen here, I intend to go in with Bullet Seed and Vine Whip as my fast moves on both these grass Pokemon, but if need be, I can transform both of these into Razor Leaf users and use that as the ultimate tap-tap team, right? So in terms of the wall spawns though, you can only get Nosepass through a nest, and I'm lucky to have one very close to me at a park. And then Cherrim and Bulbasaur are obviously available pretty much during any time, right? They're just regular common spawns. So 4 out of 10 for the ease to acquire, 10k for Cherrim and Ivysaur for the secondary moves, and 50k for Probopass in the power-up cost. I wound up spending 120k dust for this team, and I'm probably going to stick with that. And then for the future use, it's a 6 out of 10 for me because I already own an Ivysaur and a Cherrim, but all 3 of these Pokemon should have applications somewhere in your GBL arsenal. So I think it's going to be a pretty interesting team to play. And yeah, if I need to pivot, I have all these other budget teams that I can play. But again, this last week is all about having fun. So I definitely recommend that you guys go out there and still play. I know it can be pretty frustrating for a lot of the hardcore grinders that the season quote unquote doesn't matter, or the season just for fun. But try to go out there and make some Stardust. We definitely need it. We're going to need it for when level 50 comes anyways. All those power up costs that are going to be required for us to keep battling, I think it's pretty worth it to keep playing GBL. So anyways, if you haven't reached rank 10, I hope that you definitely hit it this week. Get that Pikachu Libre, get that rank 10 badge. It's going to be huge because we're going to have to get ready for Season 6 anyways, right? So if you like this video, once again, please feel free to comment, like, or subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.